Okay, are you ready for wave painting? Let's go, because there's a lot of things to do here. So I'll start with the eyebrows, because for me they are the simplest thing to wave paint. Let's make some waves here, then let me use smear tool and then some blur tool, maybe until the end, not sure, but anyways, we'll see that later. Then this one I want to wave paint here. Let's give now just blur, and here this for this whole part, and let's blur the rest. So I want some cohesion on whatever transformation I do on the bones. So let's see what it does. Hide everything here to have easier visualization of this mesh being deformed. Well, certainly not the most interesting deformations here or expressions. What can we do only with eyebrows? Sometimes there happen to be some interpenetrations or weird deformations on the mesh, but yes, this is bad, because then this is some kind of expression I like to do. This is why it's good to be able to control this particular spline here, that this spline here would be smaller already from rest pose, but if it is not, we can still make some squashing of it from posing. And so it's not perfect, but this already grants some valuable expressions with very little effort. So let's see what could be done to ameliorate this thing. Let's first change this order, the solidifying subdivision. You see, this is what happens when the subdivisions go after the solidify. More artifacts, interpenetrations come into place. So that's why for this case at least, I want to keep the solidify after. But then, of course, I need to do something about the interpenetration. So for example here, when this stretches too much, then we have this interpenetration. This could be perhaps avoided with more subdivisions. Let's try it from the... No, this doesn't solve much. Maybe if I could subdivide from here, let's see. This helps more than actually subdivisions on the subdivision surface modifier. Now it's getting a bit satisfactory. I really am not sure which would be an optimal mesh topology for it, but provided it got this capability of maintaining its overall shape along the curved surface of the forehead, this is a good sign that this is working in a decent way at least. Okay, so for the eye contour wave painting, it's a bit more complicated. What I'm gonna do is first to protect the eyelids mesh from wave painting. So I go on edit mode. I have already, remember, this eyes region set visible. This artifact you're seeing here is the other eyebrow that is... This is because of the mirror modifier, which is not showing on edit mode. It doesn't have where to shrink wrap to, so it goes to anywhere else closest on the body mesh. Don't worry about that. Then I have here this thing, but more than that, I want to have the eyelids mesh. I can select from this modifier vertex group, doesn't matter. Then I invert this selection. Actually, no, I don't want this. So I go back on object mode, go on wave paint mode, and now if I select a bone and I enable paint mask option, then I can paint only on this, actually on this region, although the borders would still be this borders will still be painted, those vertices on the... This is not necessarily a bad thing. This is vertex selection. I'm not using for this case, I'll use it for the eyelashes wave painting. But for all the rest I'll be using paint mask. And I have assigned shortcut keys here, so this is O key. So let me remove and let me assign O key, because it looks a bit like the default shortcut for the proportional editing. And because it remembers me that tool and there is nothing assigned for that shortcut key on wave paint mode, then I use it. And for the vertex select, it's P shortcut because it's side by side, and then I can easily toggle between them or enable disable. Apparently I've lost my selection, so let's do it again. Let's select this and then invert. I could make, yes, a vertex group especially for that, but this is relatively simple, so let's not bother with that. Okay, now as I go here, I want to wave paint this. I'll protect the mesh with paint mask option, and then the problem is that I cannot switch, you see, from bone to bone, so I need to disable, switch with Control left mouse button click, right? And then enable again. So disable, swap, re-enable. And that's a bit annoying workflow, but as we get used to it, it's very powerful for wave painting, especially this kind of complicated stuff, right? It's very delicate. So in this case, I'm avoiding the eyelids mesh. Maybe it's good to have certain degree of influence there from the eye contour deformed bones slightly on the eyelids mesh, but in principle, let's try it without any influence except from these corners here. Let's start with some maximum value. This will be my approach. However, the strength, so maximum wave, but the strength will be a bit slighter. Maybe let's set it at 0.7, and so I'll try to do it something like that, and then I'll blur it, but I'll do that later because I want to be more methodical about this process. So I'll first wave paint all the mesh from these deformed bendy bones with this thing, and then I'll blur one by one. I think this is more efficient. So never forget to protect with the paint mask option. After we'll get more waves there, expanded waves. And on organic rigging, often in many cases it is a good idea to have this shared influence from multiple bones on the same mesh, on the same vertices. And I'm not using auto normalize option because exactly I want to do something more. Oops, you see here I forgot to disable. I seldom use auto normalize for wave painting because this is a very complicated option. It is destructive if we used in a wrong way. Okay, then we are nearly finishing that. Oops, I forgot. And for these bones, I cannot paint the other area, which is good because I don't have symmetrized bones anyways, but this is because of the mirror modifier. It says mirrored mesh, and it's good actually that I don't have the symmetrized bones yet, otherwise it could cause some issues on wave painting regarding to symmetry. Even with mirror modifier, some issues can happen. For example, I have a symmetric bone here and I start on the mirrored mesh, but I can, if I have that bone selected, wave paint the other side. It's very strange. I don't know exactly what would that be used for, but this can be done, and sometimes we make it accidentally and it's not very interesting. It can mess up some of our workflow. And these areas, the side areas, actually they are composed of 2 bendy bone sets, right? Each side, and I want them to have stronger weights here anyways, because not because so much that I want to deform this, but I want these bones to be like, I don't want them to rotate very much. They are more for stability of the mesh on this region. So since they have strong weights on this region, and they are not be changing, the other bones, bendy bones there, they won't be able to deform this area very much, and this, I think it's a good idea. So they are more like pillars for the sides, which shouldn't deform too much. Maybe stretching that way, but even so it's not very interesting, although it might be necessary. Now I want to blur, of course. I want a very smaller strength for the blurring tool, and so let's start making this for okay, and it's here where I will be getting lots of expansion here, but because these forehead bones, right, they it's good that they have some good sharing of waves, otherwise as we move each one of them, we can have very ugly deformations. And ideally, I think I should have a main control bone, or more than one main control bone, for moving them like as a whole group, right? Just like, let's say, something like that, right? I'll think about that later. But it's usually interesting to have these multiple splines here so that I can have some variety in the expressions. And this can be interesting for a richer rig and richer posing and richer animation, whatever. Okay, so let's keep blurring this. I want this to reach, even though it's small influences, it's important so that it helps maintaining cohesion. Mesh cohesion, right? So it's like some sort of proportional editing. And because those waves are so small, it doesn't really pose much risks, right? At least I hope not. Sometimes even small waves, depending on other factors, can be disastrous, and we don't want anything at all.